Bea Jackson is a New York Times best-selling and award-winning children's book illustrator, character designer, and concept artist. She's illustrated several children's books, done cover work for books, comics, and magazines, and was a featured artist for Target's Wondershop collection. She won the grand prize for L. Ron Hubbard's Illustrator of the Future Awards in 2007 and illustrated the New York Times best-selling picture book, Parker Looks Up. Join us today for an inspiring conversation about Bea's artistic journey and the exciting projects she is currently working on. Welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm your co-host, Bea Araujo, and I'm joined today by Lauren Brown, my other co-host. And we're super excited to have Bea Jackson as our guest today. She's a New York Times best-selling illustrator for children's books, a character designer, and concept artist. And we are super excited. I'm such a huge fan. So we're just going to jump right into the conversation and get to know all about her and her career.
Bea, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I'm just upset with Michigan's weather because yesterday it was like 30, 40, and now it's below zero.
Oh my!
Oh no!
So, yeah, Michigan's being temperamental right now.
Wait, are y'all at least getting snow though?
Yeah, we got snow. It was like I'm mostly a homebody, so I work from home. I'm mostly here drawing all day, and the one time that I actually needed to go outside, it was a snowstorm.
Oh no!
And the temperature dropped.
Wow.
So I'm like, well, this is ironic, but you get used to it in Michigan. And, that's why in my car, I keep all types of coats and extra boots and shoes, because you never know what you're going to get into once you step outside.
That's true. I don't miss living in the north, that's for sure. I'm glad I moved to the south. I had to escape winter proper. But Bea, let's just start by telling us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay.
You can tell anything that you want to.
All right. Well, I guess I can go into how I got started doing the arts or getting into the arts. So I actually had a passion for writing when I was little, more so than I did for art. So I would write all these little stories and things like that. And then I got into sci-fi films. I think the movie that I saw was Starship Troopers. And
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I was really into that movie. I just remember thinking, like, how cool would it be if it was like an awesome alien queen that was on the planet that they could run into? And I started to draw like the alien queen, like these different characters, and it kind of teetered into me getting into fan fiction. So I wanted to like expand on these stories, especially back then when you had to wait like forever for like sequels or anything like that. So I would just start expanding these different stories in my head, and I had all these folders of drawings and these character descriptions that were horribly misspelled that I still hang on to, and like drawn on line paper and things like that. So that's generally how I got started. I started to also eventually get into anime. Like I remember we had first got the internet, and I sound old even saying it, but we had first got the internet, and I saw anime for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I saw comic art, and I had no idea what it was. I had no idea how it was made, but I was really fascinated by it, by the art, and like just I've always gravitated towards strong, powerful women in illustration, or like seeing them. Like I loved Wonder Woman. I used to try to skip school to watch the Linda Carter Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's awesome.
Things like that. So it kind of spilled into other things, and like with comics, I saw a lot of really strong female characters, and one of them was Aspen from a comic called Fathom by Michael Turner. So I became a huge Michael Turner fangirl, and I was like, one day I'm gonna be like him. So I paid attention to his art. Like I would buy all his comics, like that that I could find. When I was little, I had my mom find me a comic book store, which was way out of the way, and I would just study his artwork. And I learned that he had painted using or he colored they colored that with the comics, they colored using the computer. So I was like, I have to use the computer. If I want my work to look like that, I have to use the computer. So I had MS Paint and just
Oh, you started with the real OG. Like, okay.
yeah, so I started with MS Paint with a regular mouse.
Wow.
And I would just I started with line art and then I moved up to color. And then I eventually got some bootleg version of Adobe Elements. And I was able to up my game a little bit.
Elements is wild. I remember that.
So, but I got into digital art like really young before it was actually accepted at the time. And I would say by the time I got to high school, I was really proficient with actually rendering in Photoshop like elements. I don't know how I figured it out using the regular mouse because I didn't know about Wacom. I don't even think they had the first tablets yet when I started. So I was like, my wrist is starting to hurt, like dealing with this mouse all the time. And so I started to search, like, is there a pen that I could draw with? And I found out about the Wacom tablet and I was able to go up from there. But my school life wasn't great. I didn't really have any formal education as an artist. Like everything that I learned was through observing other artists that I admire, like Michael Turner, and a few other different comic artists that I had gravitated to anime. So that's what I did. I would just come home and just look at their artwork and just try to figure out how it was made. And then I had the option of what I wanted to do when I grew up. So my teacher, I had an art teacher. His name is Stephen Milley, and I still talk to him occasionally. But he saw that I really liked to draw, and I was pretty much the only student in his class that he felt like he could teach. Because unfortunately, in my school, the art class was the place where they dropped off all the bad kids that the teachers didn't want to deal with. So I was actually in there because I wanted to do art.
Yeah.
But the teacher couldn't, my teacher, he couldn't focus on me because, he was so busy, just trying to keep the class from not being rowdy. So he would give me like little assignments that was just for me to so that and there was a few times where he let me just go in the teacher's office and just draw there so I wouldn't be distracted. But he was the one person that was really like, you can make a career out of this. If you want to be an artist, you can be an artist. And if you have passion for it, you might be starving, but at least you'll be doing what you love, So I had a lot of the starving artist talks growing up, like, are you sure you want to do this? You might not make any money. And I was like, I just want to do what makes me happy. Like, so if it doesn't make me rich or anything like that, that's fine. I'll still try to find a way to do what I love to do. So my heart was, I feel like, always in the right place in that regard. And my teacher was really instrumental in getting me into college because he saw a lot of potential in me. And unfortunately, in the years that I was in high school, the school just degraded into utter chaos, like each passing year, to the point where I was put into classes that were pretty much destined to make me fail. Like they were putting me in bad classes and my teacher had to step in and my art teacher had to step in and speak with the counselors and tell them to put me in better classes so that I could graduate. But during those years, it was very tumultuous, but he made sure that I participated in art contests. He was like, you need to make as much money as you can, like doing these different art contests so that you can have money or scholarships towards college. And I wanted to go to College for Creative Studies, which at the time was one of the top 3 art schools in the country. And it's not far from here. It was like 15 minutes from my house.
Oh,
so
wow.
If I'm going to go anywhere, it's going to be there. So like for like 3 years, he really worked with me, making sure I entered in the contest, and I won quite a few of them. But one problem that I ran into is because digital art wasn't considered real art.
Mm.
I almost got disqualified from a few of them because they didn't consider what I did real. And it's kind of funny that now digital art is like dominating so much. It's like everywhere. So to go through that process and stick with it, I was like, and also one reason why I went towards digital art. I did grow up in a single mother household. Um, I couldn't afford art supplies, so I was like, this is actually cost effective. I don't have to buy paint or markers or paper or all those things. So up until college, I didn't have any formal education in art. And when I finally got there, I was super excited. I did make it into my college of choice, which is the College for Creative Studies. And I was able to go for 2 years. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to finish because eventually the thing about private schools is that it costs a lot of money,
Yeah, they're
So,
not.
I was hopeful. Like I had a lot of hope growing up. Like, oh, if I put my mind to it, I can do anything. So it'll work out. I'll finish college. But as I went in there, like my mother ended up getting laid off and she couldn't support me in college anymore. So I had to pick up work. So I would try to find jobs that allowed me to work from home. And every single job that I've had, I've worked from home. Like even before it was difficult to find those. So it was types of jobs where I would be like a phone agent and like I think I got up to like supervisor status with some of those. So it's like, say for example, you call a company, you think you're, calling a call center. They have certain individuals like myself who the call will be routed to them, like, and they're working from home. It's more common now, but it wasn't really common then. And, we kind of had to put on the air that, yeah, we're in office somewhere,
Yeah.
So I went for jobs like that and I maintained jobs like that for, I think like 7 years because it allowed me to draw as I work. Like I could talk
Mm.
and still draw at the same time. So I would do that in school, but eventually the debt like with school caught up to me and I couldn't enroll again. And I was distraught because a lot of teachers knew me pretty well at the school. And one of them had set me aside and said, you're free to come to my class. You can sit in and learn and you just won't get any credits for it. So I had a lot of support there. And then one of them eventually told me, like, you don't have to go into debt to become an artist. You have the skills to just go out there and make it happen. So she kind of gave me the push to make that step. So I was like, well, I can't afford to keep going. So I like, and that's the choice that I'm left with. I have to make it work. Like, even if I can't like attend college anymore. And I'm grateful for the time that I had there. Because I met some wonderful people that are instrumental in my life to this day. Like they're very close friends, very close people that I have that support me. So I was like, you're worth the debt that I picked up. So that's my compliment to them. But yeah, it was unfortunate because the way that college was designed, at least for me then, you don't even get into the classes of your major until like year 3. So I was doing like all the preliminary stuff that I had already figured out for those 2 years. So I don't feel like I got out of it like what I wanted, so that's the other unfortunate downside of things. I did learn about other artists though. I learned about Norman Rockwell while I was there, I'm a huge fan of his work. And I learned about gesture drawing because I was just completely new to that world, you could say, because I've just been in my room drawing all day. So it's like,
Yeah.
so it's like going from that to being in an environment with other like-minded individuals who are just as passionate about art as I am, so I learned a few things from there, but I wasn't able to take the classes that I wanted, which was like storytelling or perspective. So when I couldn't continue, I was like, I still have to figure this stuff out on my own. And one thing that got me through those years when I started to have to pay for things myself, because my mom couldn't do it, children's books. So while I was doing those phone calls, while I was doing those phone calls with the outsourced jobs, I would be drawing and working on children's books. So it's like doing two jobs at the same time. And I didn't go into children's books because I wanted to initially. Like my passion, as I stated before, was always to go into comics. I wanted to be like Michael Turner. Just didn't work out that way, you know? So people start to see more of my children's books, and that's what they gravitated towards. And for a while, I had a hard time accepting it because I was like, well, nobody likes the work that I like to do, you know? So I was like, I like to draw more like dark fantasy and things like that. And that was really hard to accept. But I had to come to a place in my life where I was like, this isn't bad, you know? I was like, every step that I've taken in my life towards my dreams and my goals has gotten me closer to where I want to be. And this is just one of those steps. So it's better to embrace it, you know, embrace the children's books than to fight it. You know, if this is my step up, then I'm gonna take it. And it allowed me to see children's books in a different light, you know. So I started to gain a deep appreciation and a love for like the storytelling and just seeing the way that the art is developed on the page, like how things are paced and everything like that. So the same approach that I had to studying comics, I started to apply towards children's books with the same passion. So now I collect more children's books and I collect comics, you know, so, and I collect them because I want to see like, oh, that's really cool how this artist like laid out that page, or wow, look how they conceptualized this, or look at the colors that they chose. So I keep some children's books like right by my desk that I always pull out to look at for inspiration from some artists that I follow and you know, have had the honor of speaking to some great artists that I respect. And it's been a learning experience and I've had a lot of fun with it. And I'm really glad that I embraced it. And, you know, just as I said that it was a step to kind of come up, like the children's books were a step for me. Now I'm in a place where my style is more accepted. So I can start to present like my own ideas and people are more receptive to it. So I was like, it might have taken me a lot longer, but I'm, you know, I'm getting there and I'm really happy with that. But you know, it's been a tough journey, but I'm gonna leave some room open if you have any questions.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so inspiring to hear about. Oh my gosh. Like
yeah,
just hearing the whole journey and like you said, it took a while, but it's like you got to draw too and like hone your skills and just and your storytelling skills and all that stuff and just how you managed to do both is just anyway, I'm sorry, I'm gushing, but go ahead, Lauren.
oh no, it really is awesome. And it's interesting because it's a common thread for a lot of people who come on the show that when they first started out, they didn't find immediate success or reception for their work, but they stuck with it anyway because that's what, you know, that's how they made their living. That's how they had their joy. That's, you know, it was a part of them. And they didn't let that reception stop them from creating the art that they were making. And it seems like the story is the same with you, where digital art was not looked down upon. And I grew up in a similar era to you, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I also use Photoshop elements and taught myself digital art with a mouse in MS Paint and then Oekaki. And there were like little pockets of communities that were there, but the overall reception for digital art was still very like lowly regarded until like I think concept.org came out, and then more people started to like see that there was value there. But it did take a long time. And something I'm also interested in with your work, because it's not just the work that you do and the medium that you do it in, but also the subject matter. I want to ask you more about what inspires what you do in your work and what you're, you know, it's like you got into children's books and a lot of that is related to that, but I also see a lot of different diverse art. You have book covers, you have, you know, comic stuff, which of course we know where that came from. But we have a lot of fantasy inspired things. And I just want to ask you more about that. Like, what inspires the subject matter in your work the most?
Well, what I love to do the most is fantasy. And I particularly want to do more Black fantasy because, as you stated, you don't see much of it. And so I really want to explore those different aspects, and I want to see more Black mermaids, Black fairies. In my mind, everything is really magical. Like it is. There's a lot going on up there.
Yes.
So it's like pulling these different things out, but at the core of it, I like to draw upon real emotions, um, the good and the bad. Like I'm very in touch with my past self as a child, and that's what I really pull from in terms of the children's illustration because I remember what it feels like to have that wonder. And I try to keep that at the forefront. Like, what's it like when I saw a ballerina for the first time, and like capturing that all, like, oh, she's so pretty. So I try to dig deep and capture those moments. And this goes back to one of my favorite artists, which is Norman Rockwell. I really love the way that he was able to capture moments in time. Like it looks like when I would look at Norman Rockwell's work, it would look like a photograph had just been taken, of a snapshot. So I have a lot of inspiration that I draw from trying to capture that, like capturing those moments. I don't want, I try to avoid my artwork being too posed, and some of it still is, because I really like to capture that emotion when you kind of let go and focus in on body language and and lighting and things like that. You can express a lot of emotions with those different things. And then occasionally, because I've also really loved pinup style artwork, which is very posed. I try to implement tasteful elements of that in my work as well. So, because I really like dance, I can't dance to save my life. I really like dancing poses, and I really love ballerinas and things like that. So, you might capture things like that in my artwork where everything kind of has like a dance like flow to it or softness to it, because those are different things that inspire me.
Yeah, you definitely capture a lot of movement in your work. It feels very alive. And it does capture that Rockwellian like essence where it's like a snapshot or a moment in time, but there's a fantasy essence with it all. And like that really appeals to me because yeah, like I said earlier, I really don't get to see a lot of that. And it makes me happy because it does remind me of a time where I also felt that all. So you evoke those emotions really well in your work. And I really appreciate that you do what you do. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. But yeah, the good thing is that I am able to get more into that, and I haven't announced it yet, but I did get an opportunity where I can do that and have the support and backing of a publishing house to do it. So you'll be hearing more about it like in 2025. But it, like I said, it was a long time coming where I get to do what I want to do and get
Yes.
to explore those things. But I had an opportunity where I could sit in front of some different publishers, and I was able to pitch some ideas, and quite a few of them got picked up. So I can finally, start to tell those stories. And for the ones that, because like when I did that, we still had to land on one to start with. Um, but for the ones that I did not start with, like in my private time, I'm exploring like how I will approach like some of these different ideas. And I'm trying to do a mix of adding historical elements to my artwork because I really love doing historical work as well, especially if I'm learning about someone new. And some of the books that I've done recently, one about Bayard Rustin is one of those historical books where I had no idea who Bayard Rustin was. And in case no one is aware, he was a civil rights leader who helped arrange the March on Washington with jobs for jobs. But a lot of people didn't hear about him because he was an openly gay man. And they did not want his sexuality to be weaponized against the movement. So he faced some backlash against some people within the movement and outside of the movement who was trying to use that to destroy it. And he had some people that were in his corner, like Martin Luther King, and I think it was a few other people. I'm terrible with names, so I'm just, to avoid from messing up, I'm just gonna say it was a few civil rights leaders that had his back. He just couldn't be in the forefront, but now we get to hear his stories because the times are more accepting of it. And that was a really cool project to work on. And the book is called Unstoppable. They also have a movie that just, I think, came out on Netflix that covers Bayard Rustin's life. But having those experiences where I could learn about somebody that I never learned about in school, I really love to approach things in such a fresh way where I don't even know, who the person is, and I can learn as I work. So like, there's a few things that I want to do that kind of take inspiration from historical figures, but also with a fantasy element to it, and just kind of like seeing where things go. Like if you take that childlike wonder of seeing something for the first time and apply it in creative ways, like how it can inspire the youth in different ways. So that's what I want to do. And I'm hoping that like by the end of 2024, I can share some of those ideas, just got to be careful about how I post it and things like that. But that's something that I want to do. And I feel like this is the year where I can really express myself and start sharing some of my own ideas. I spent a lot of years, doing everybody else's stories. So, which I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful for the journey that so many people have allowed me to take part in, because it opened a lot of doors for me. And I'm also excited to be able to start sharing my own journey and the stories that, come from my imagination as well. So it's a beautiful position to be in, I would say.
So awesome. I can't wait. Oh my gosh.
I'm really excited for you. That is huge.
I know you can't talk about the stories themselves, but can you talk about how the attention from the public, like how you got in front of publishers and stuff like that at all? It's okay if you can't, and we can cut this out, but if you can.
I can. I mean, the how I got into some of the jobs that I have is kind of funny and interesting.
Please share.
So I guess I could share like how I got in with the publishing houses. So, I've been doing children's book illustrations for many years, like working with local self-publishers. And, I was doing all the work from the contract to arranging the books, the words, the artwork. I was pretty much doing multiple people's jobs.
Wow.
So, because I was focusing on doing so many other things, I didn't have time to market myself. But a few of those books that I did, like I would say during my struggle phase, the authors were really good about promoting their artwork, the artwork. So their efforts actually got my work in front of, other people's eyes. And I will say I have been scammed before. I've dealt with a lot of things that, a lot of individuals who, came to me pretending that they had my best interest, but they were really just trying to steal my artwork, and some of them did. So when I got an email, it was from Simon & Schuster, and they said that they wanted to, they were considering me as an illustrator for the Parker Looks Up book. I thought it was a scam.
Oh no! Oh my god!
I was like, oh no! I'm like, that's a big name. I don't trust it. So I ended up taking an email, because by then I had some people that I trusted that were higher in the industry. They coached me on how to read like certain emails and like contracts to make sure that they're legitimate. So I was like, before I even respond, I'm going to share this with them and just ask them, does it sound legit? Because I didn't want to get burned again. I was scared. I was like, you get so excited, it's like, this might finally be my break, and then it's just like, no, it's just somebody stealing your artwork again.
Yeah.
So they looked it over and They was like, this looks legit. You should go for it. Congratulations. So, but I mean, it was still a process or whatever. So, sometimes with the children's book stuff, you have to do tests and see if you actually get approved for different things. So I did the test, and I remember I was driving home and I had got a notification from somebody that I knew. Like, so it pops up like you see the name. So I was like, all right, I gotta pull over. So I got the notifications like, congratulations, we want you to be the illustrator for Parker Looks Up. And I cried.
Oh.
I was like, this is legitimate. This is my chance or whatever. So that's why I say it's kind of funny, because I thought I was getting scammed again. But yeah, so and the thing is, what some people don't know about the publishing world, at least from my experience, some of them don't always like to work with you if you're not represented by anybody, because it's for the publishing house. So for them to reach out to me, that was an exception. And I learned that later down the line. So I was excited. It was the biggest job that I ever had. It was very different, so I was like, I'm not gonna have the same leeway that the local authors give me, so I was like, I had to take it seriously. So it was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, but it was a really good experience, a really good working experience. The people that I worked with were very understanding. And when the book got done, one of the editors had asked me if I had representation, because they really liked working with me. And I was like, no, but I'm not opposed to it. If I have somebody that, really has my best interest. Now, by then, because I had been burned before, I was very specific about like certain things that I wanted in representation. Because what some artists don't know is you can get represented by somebody who's literally just using you as a siphon for money.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot, where even if you go out and you get a job yourself, they still want to cut. But they didn't do anything to facilitate that or work it. So I'm like, I don't want that again, because I had fell into that before. So I was like, if the representation is good, I'm not opposed to it. And the editor that I spoke with, they put me in contact with somebody that they trust, that they work with. So I'm like, if this is somebody that is working with, this major publishing house, and I felt more comfortable about it. And I got on the phone, and I now have representation. So, and my agent is a very wonderful person. She looks out for me. My friends love her because they've seen me go through a lot of the things that I had to deal with. So they're happy that I have somebody that's protecting me, because, sometimes you can run into people that, everything seems fine, but, there might be malintent there, unfortunately. So it's really good to have somebody have your back, and, took a lot of pressure off, because suddenly I didn't have to do all the legwork. I didn't have to spend hours trying to formulate a contract. I didn't have to spend hours formatting a book and doing all that. Having my representation allowed me to just do what I love to do, which is the art, which was what I needed, because at that time I was kind of wore out, So that was really cool. So those connections that I made in that experience, like getting representation and having those good relationships with the people that I worked with, a lot of those people watch my Instagram. So when I post my personal stuff, some of them are the ones that see it. And I had posted, if you look back on my feed, you'll see a picture of a gold fairy with the monarch wings. I did like a little animation video. And I did that piece because I was actually at a community center with a friend of mine. And and we were talking about how awesome it would be to see more Black fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I would love to do, draw, Black fairies and, see Black fairy tales and things like that. So I went home and I drew a fairy. It was kind of like a lot of my sketches that you see now. Like there's a little story that I put behind it, like where this sketch came from, like what I was thinking about. So I shared the story, like, yeah, I had this conversation about how, we really don't see representation of ourselves. And I drew this fairy and I painted her wings with gold ink, and like I mixed mica powder to make it even shinier, and painted her wings, posted it, and one of the editors saw it and then reached out to me and was like, how would you feel about doing a book about Black fairies?
Oh my God.
So I was like, yay, this is like me working in my own style, doing something that I love to do. And I got excited again. The same people that reached out to me about the Parker book. So I'm like, I know they're legit. I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about that again. So I got really excited, like, yeah, of course, I would love that. And so they set up a meeting and I was able to pitch my story because they were just going based off of the picture.
Yeah.
So they set up a meeting, was like, okay, so what story do you want to tell? So it would like be literally starting from the ground up. So I was like, well, I actually have a few stories, I was like, and I told him, I was like, I actually used to write a lot. And I'm really good at conceptualizing stories. I kind of struggle with the writing part,
Yeah.
just the formatting, everything. Like I'll try, and I used to write like whole stories, but it's very mentally exhausting. Like I'll write a paragraph and want to go to sleep. So
Mia nods emphatically.
Writing is so
I'm like,
hard.
this took so much effort
Yes.
to write this one paragraph. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. But like I can pretty much lay out what I want the story to be. So I just asked, like, if you have time, I have a few ideas that I want to pitch, and they found out that I like to write, and they didn't know that. So I pitched a few stories to them, and that was not related to the fairy, in addition to the one for the fairy. And they were like, these are all really great ideas. We have to pick one to run with. So they decided to run with the fairy one to start. So that's pretty much how that got started. And I was able to get a book deal where I will be author and illustrator.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going through a whole lot of learning curves with the writing side, because one thing that I struggle with is, like, I think the writing that I do is more geared towards young adults, teens. That's the way that my voice comes off when I write. So it's like, how do I condense that in a way that is digestible for kids? So it's a lot of trimming and condensing and learning. And it's like I feel like I'm in school and I'm learning, like even with the art, like I don't have to get other people's approval, but I learned that getting my own approval is hard.
Oh yes.
Oh,
yes.
I'm like, is this what I want? I don't know. Like, I don't want this piece. No. So I'm like, great. I'm worse than some people that I've worked with in the past. And not even that, and that's just from my bad experiences. I've had some wonderful experience with since I've gotten representation. And because unfortunately, when you're on your own, you run into some characters. So
yes.
So I'm like, yeah, I realize I'm a little hard to please myself. So, learning and like I'll come up with ideas and I have to accept that not everything will be accepted, because you still have to go through like what pieces really fit the best. So like not everything can make it. You have to be willing to let certain stuff go. You don't want to force things. So it's been a learning experience and I've been having fun with it. And when I have more of my private time, I go back to those other stories that I want to tell. And I just take what I've learned so far from working on the current book to applying it to the ones the other ones that I want to tell. So when it's time to tell those, like if I get the opportunity to tell those, some of the work's already been done, you know.
Great.
So that's my hope. And like even if certain things don't go through, I can always go the self-publishing route, which is where I started. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't feel like any of the investment or time that I put in is wasted.
That's amazing.
That's really incredible. Oh, that's so exciting too.
I know.
Black fairies, like yes. Yes, please. Give me more of that content. And okay. I want to ask you kind of I don't know if it's a controversial question, but it's a question that I think about a lot because I sometimes illustrate children's books as well for local clients and things like that. And I have opinions about a certain type of children's book, and I think you've done a little bit of both, and I want to hear your opinion about that since you've worked on these actively. I love having positive representation of Black characters for Black children and everything, but I feel like the majority of Black children's books are so much more about, oh, like I love my hair, or I love my skin, or I love being, just like it's more about just like the being of Black rather than just being. And if that makes sense. And the ones that I tend to resonate a lot more with are just Black kids just being who they are, having adventures. So I want to know what you think about that and your opinion is about those kinds of books versus another.
Well, I completely agree. Like I see where you're coming from with it, because one of the books that I started out with that got me a lot of attention was Hair Like Mine.
Yeah.
Which is now Kids Like Mine series with a local author. So I think I did 4 or 5 of her books. Now I will say at the time when I did Hair Like Mine, there's a thing that I do. I try to research if something is already out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's another reason why I collect children's books, because I try and like I study different children's books, because I try not to replicate what I've seen, or try to be careful not to do that. And if I do feel like my artwork is kind of replicating something that I know, I like to give credit to the artist that inspired it.
Yeah.
So at the time, from what I recall, I didn't see any books that were catered to Black hair or Black self-appreciation.
Oh, wow.
That's from my experience, I might have overlooked it, but I did that research, and at the time, which was about almost 10 years ago, I didn't see it. So it wasn't out there. And Latasha, again, this is all from my perspective, and she was a pioneer with that, because like after her book came out, I noticed I started to see a lot more of it. And then she did Skin Like Mine, and then you start seeing more of that too.
Yes.
I know that her work got around to a lot of people, because like when people would look to work with me, they would always reference her books. And they would say, like, I want to do, a book about Black hair and, things like that. I'm like, Natasha, did it, but I think honestly in the Black community, there's such an influx of it, because so many of us grew up, so many Black children grew up not appreciating ourselves.
Yes.
And I'm kind of like doing some self-portraiture pieces. Like, I don't like to do anything that's too direct. I like to explore like how I can take something and shift it. So I'm doing some self-portraiture pieces that explore my own hair journey, because there's a lot of trauma there. And my hair is in locks right now. It wasn't a statement to like, oh, some people get it as a statement. I got it because I was tired of getting my hair pressed and getting perms. So I spent a lot of years hating my hair. So I had a lot of appreciation for the work that Latasha did, because she wanted to show kids, especially young Black kids, that it was okay to love your hair, to love your skin, that it's beautiful. And I think that what she had to say resonated with people. She saw a need and she met it. That's from my perspective.
That's awesome.
And now you have a lot more people that are, a lot of people that are, I feel like they're trying to tell their stories too, where they come from. But I also completely understand like wanting that to not be the focus, because at a certain point you have to just let things be. And like, I read a lot of webtoons, and I'm starting to see webtoons where you have Black leading characters, and this is even in fantasy. It's like some really beautiful ones that I found where you have Black leading characters, and their race and their hair isn't mentioned at all. They're just as normal people. So I think that we're getting to that point where, it's more accepted to just have a character be as they are. And I think when you get to that step, that's what shows progress. But I've been on both sides of it, and stuff like that. So the only thing is, like, with the story that I want to tell about my hair journey, it's not told from a very positive light. And I have a hard time. Like, for me, I love duality. I love showing the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the bad and the ugly isn't always well accepted.
It's true.
So, I really struggle with posting those things, even though like I want to show like this is a real experience that Black people had to deal with. So like some of my personal works like that I want to do, I think are more geared towards older people who would understand it, and like maybe to keep it in mind that, appreciate where you have. Because I love that now you can see so many different Black hairstyles, and, people can proudly wear the Afro puffs and braids and locks, because when I was coming up, that wasn't accepted at all. I've known people who got fired for having locks, because or they, it's the impression that, you don't wash your hair is dirty all the time. I wash my hair, so
we wash our hair, yes.
So, it's a lot of misconceptions. And I noticed that because I do have a diverse group of friends. So when I'm doing stuff, especially if it's really touchy, I have my peer group of friends, the people that I met in college. So they have an eye for art. And I ask them, what do you think about this piece? Like, what does it say to you? And if their reaction is extremely negative, I'm like, okay, I need to
edit it down a bit.
Because part of my hair, the stuff that I wanted to do with hair deals with getting perms and presses.
Yeah.
For me, that was extremely traumatic. Like I used to get my scalp chemical burned, and had my ears burned, and like all this stuff to have my hair be straight, So it's like on one hand, you have people, your parents telling you, oh, your hair is beautiful, it's so strong, and all this stuff. And on the other hand, you got everybody making fun of you, So a lot of kids just grew up with that, and is a real struggle. And when I ask people, like, do you know about hot combs, or especially people that are not familiar, I was like, do you know about hot combs and all this stuff? You'd be amazed at how many people don't know but that's what young Black girls had to deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why certain things should be said, because we have the Crown Act now and things like that, because people didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's my stance on it. I think it's I'm of two minds with it. I am in the mind, like, I'm happy to see art and literature move on where that's not the focus, but I understood the need where it's came from.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those are really, really good points, because I mean, you also got to see the ground floor of it, which is amazing, honestly, that you were part of that, the start of the movement of having all these books that are talking about positive representation of how to see yourself, that you are, you are also worthy, you are beautiful, your hair and your skin are beautiful. And there's always a need for that, I think, for sure. I didn't have those books when I was growing up either. I didn't have that experience when I was growing up where I thought that my hair or skin was really beautiful. And I grew up in a predominantly Black area. So, it was something that I didn't get a chance to get exposed to. And I'm glad that kids nowadays are getting exposed to it. I think with the surge of awareness of Black issues and Black empowerment, there are a lot of books that cover that same theme now, which is what I was reacting to. But I do think there's definitely a need for it. But I'm also really happy to hear that the book that you're going to be now working on is about Black fairies, which is just like something I think I would have really, really loved to see as a kid and wished I had seen as a kid more than anything else was myself in those fantasy spaces, like, like magical girls and Sailor Moon and being a Pokemon trainer and all these things that we never got to really experience as young Black girls. And I'm excited that there's going to be a generation of young Black people who are going to grow up with your books. And like, that's a really amazing thought.
Thank you. And I'm really happy to see it. Like, I really love the creativity that a lot of young Black kids have, and like they have a lot of freedoms and they have a lot less trauma.
Yes. Well, they have different kinds of trauma, but not the same traumas that we had growing up.
But I'm
The hot
happy
cold
to
burning
see
in
it.
here and stuff.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see it. And like, again, like in the stories that I've read, like some of the stories that I've read, I'm really happy to see like you have characters of, and not even just Black characters, like different diverse groups. You have trans representation being presented
Yes.
in a lot of ways, where it's not like so much at the forefront. It's just the character is. You don't have, so in the same way, having characters just be, I think, makes it easier for people to accept them.
Yes.
And like, even with the books that I'm doing with the fairies, is, even though it's about Black fairies, there's no mention of the book about race or anything like that. It's just the fairy is.
Yeah.
You just are who you are, and that's beautiful. So I think that's the way I want to see the world, like just see people as people.
Yes.
So, and just trying to express that. But I understand, like, everything, it took a lot for everybody to get, or not even everybody, there's still a lot of things that need to be done.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it took a lot, it took a lot to get to a place where, you can say, I am what I am, or I am who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and not have it be a whole debate, or, a whole spiel. You don't have to explain yourself. You just are who you are. You should be accepted for who you are. So that's where I find the beauty in it. And it makes me think back to my the collection that I did at Target, for Target, with the gift boxes, because like, I'm very upfront and honest if I don't know what I'm doing. So like, and I think that's the best approach, is like, if you don't know, just tell them. Like, you don't always have to make it till you make it. So when I had got the opportunity to work with Target on the gift box series, I told them up front, like, I've never done work like this before. So I'm like, you're gonna just have to walk me through on what to do, because it's merchandise, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I do books, so I don't know how to translate my work in a way that's for merchandise. So we had a few meetings, and I pitched some ideas, and a lot of them went over really well, because basically they were just asking me, what does Christmas mean to me? Like, show us what Christmas is, like what Christmas is to you. So that was at the heart of it. So I remember going back and forth, like, okay, but how do I do that for merchandise? So like, they have you have to do assets and things like that. Like, you want to, like some collections, they might do stars or different things, or different patterns, like patterns of trees and things like that. And I remember having to ask them, like, is it okay if I like do it like a book, kind of, or like if I just have a character featured on it? Can one of my assets be a character? And they said you can do whatever you want.
That's awesome.
I was suspect about it, and I was like, you sure? Because I don't see that in the store.
Yeah.
So there was some debate there as to how much I could do, like how much creative freedom I had.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say like, oh, you have this creative freedom, but you don't have as much as you think you do. But they gave me full creative freedom. And again, it was kind of one of those things where I looked and I tried to see if you see that in the store,
Mhm.
and you don't. I was like, I don't recall a time where I walked into a store where I saw someone that looked like me.
Mm.
So I'm like, that would be really cool to have some merchandise where you have a prominent Black character on it. So I designed a little girl. She kind of looks a bit like me because it was like my my Christmas or whatever, and I took a lot of inspiration from what my Christmases were like making my mom making all the desserts that she said we couldn't have until
Oh no.
or like my obsession with scarves and a lot of knitted things. Like I love scarves, things like that. So I tried to capture moments like that, and it ended up going over extremely well. And since they said that I could do whatever I wanted, I was like, I want glitter on my boxes. So
Yes.
glitter and gold. I would really like some glitter and gold on there. I don't think the gold made it, but the glitter did.
Awesome.
So I even planned out like how I wanted the glitter to set. So like I did the Illustrator files, and then on top of that, I did like a layer where all the glitter spots that I wanted were in green. So they knew precisely where I wanted the glitter. I was very adamant about the glitter. And when I started to get reception back, I had so many people reach out to me and saying that their child walked by that spot in Target, and it was like, "Oh my God, that's me!"
Oh my God.
It was like, "That's my daughter," So just seeing somebody that even look close to them or that they felt they could resonate it with, I'm like, I felt like I made a good call there, because I could have did something like with stars and patterns and things like that, but I stuck with my guts on it. I was like, I'm taking a risk here, and I'll just see how it goes. And that was really cool because you could see representation. Now you see a lot more in stores, because I think with that was the first time that Target was doing a run, where they were trying to showcase artists of different ethnicities and backgrounds. So they actually continue to do it every year. They just have new artists. So I actually go out and I check out all the new artists that they showcase. And they have like a little bio that tells you about the artists and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's a really wonderful idea, because they didn't have to do that, but they opened up a lot of doors, and just seeing like the different stories that the different artists had to tell, like what their Christmas looks like. So it's something that I look forward to every year, and I buy some of the other artists' work as well, and I keep it as collector's items.
I love that.
But like doing things like that, and just trying to trust my instincts, that's something that I have to battle with, because sometimes when you're in certain spaces, you have a lot of voices that are, you have a lot of opinions coming at you, like especially like if you start doing more stuff that involves more people, you have more people to please and keep happy, and I really struggle to make sure that I don't forget my own voice in that, and try to hold firm to what I do. And I feel like everything that I do is risk. I'm taking a risk. I was like, it might go well, it might completely bomb, but just happen to be okay with that, and not always doing what's safe. And it was very rewarding for all the people that shared their pictures and their stories about how they felt like they were represented in the store, and just seeing the other artists that are able to tell their stories as well. I'm like, it's a beautiful thing to see, like what everything looks like to them, what Christmas looks like to them, and being a part of that experience. And like even the artists that I had that were on there, that was in the run that I did, like I had no idea who these artists were, and I'll follow them, and I love seeing their work, and have some of their books, and it's just a beautiful experience.
That's awesome. And I also think too that it goes to show when you stick to what you do, um, that authenticity really does reach across to people. And not only that, but that nervousness of thinking that a company who's hired you, knowing what you do, doesn't want what you do at first. Like as a knee-jerk reaction, it's like, are you sure this is what you want? It's like, this is what you do. I've gone through that. And I think a lot of artists have gone through that too, where you get an opportunity and you're like, but I can just be me and that's okay. And it goes to show that, to really reflect your true work in a different kind of medium and take that risk. It like that story really warmed my heart because it truly paid off where we get to see our own faces in a Target and it's being produced all over the country. And that's a beautiful feeling to be able to watch that representation happen in real time. So, and I was looking at those, the designs while you were talking about it, and they are really adorable. They're so cute.
I
Thank you.
know. I was gonna say someone obviously who isn't represented by that art though, it really captures the spirit of Christmas for me though,
It
and that
does.
magic and just the emotion. Like it's just they're just such beautiful, iconic pieces. You should be really proud. Like it's just I remember when you first posted them and just being like, oh my gosh, I want this so bad. It's so cool.
Yes.
But yeah,
Thank
it
you.
just did an incredible job. And with all your work too, like there's so much like just genuine emotion that comes through. And I just think it's really difficult to capture that so well,
It
to
is.
capture that emotion and not like overdo it. It's just like that right balance, like what you were talking about earlier about the storytelling through the poses and the expressions and all that. And I just want to particularly say how good you are at doing that because I really admire it so much.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I think that was one of the jobs that I think my mom was most proud of for me.
Oh,
Because like when you're an artist and your parents get used to seeing your stuff all the time. So
Yes.
that's cool. That's all right. So that was one of the ones where she was like, "I'm proud. My daughter did this." She kept trying to give my boxes away. They give you like when you're doing publishing stuff like that, they'll give you a couple of copies of your own work. So I'm like, you gotta leave my stuff alone. I only got 2 left. But that really made it for me, seeing how proud my mom was, and is. So I've had some like in those times where it's been like really hard. A lot of those experiences have been really rewarding, and
Mm.
they've been learning experiences. And I'm really grateful for the people that I work with and the grace that they have had towards me because, like I said, I went in not knowing what I was doing, and they still work with me. And I hope that opportunity comes to a lot of other young artists, that they have opportunities where they can, freely express themselves and have that same creative freedom.
yeah.
Because I think like one thing that I had learned while I was in college is they would say the difference between some students that found success and some didn't is that you had some students that would just do assignments all the time
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they didn't have their own voice anymore.
Yes.
So they were so focused on like, doing all these assignments, getting their portfolio, that by the time they had their portfolio and they were presenting it, everybody's portfolio looked like it came from the same school.
Yep.
And a few teachers had expressed like, have your own projects that you're working on so that your work doesn't look the same as everybody else's. So I had grew up giving myself like different signs. Like I took that to heart, and I applied it and stuff like that. So I would say like, if like for artists that's in any industry, like dig deep and find out what your passions are, like what it is that you want to express in your artwork. And if you don't have the work right now, make it for yourself. Like give yourself assignments. Like when I was more interested in doing comics and stuff like that, I would go to Comic Cons And I would seek out the artists that did comments, and I would ask them for advice, like, what would you suggest that I do? And some of them said, give yourself personal projects, do a cover that makes it look like you actually have an official cover, to tell them, let them know that you're capable of doing this type of work, and like having the consistency of it. So like taking these different experiences and being able to recognize a need, like no matter what community you're from or what your background is, if you feel like there's something that you haven't seen represented that you would like to see, try to make it happen. See what would come out of your mind on the canvas, or like with the pen, what comes out on the paper. Like even with Latasha, she saw a need. There wasn't any real representation towards young Black kids.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of people with inventions make it.
That's true.
They see a need and they meet it. So it's like have a keen eye for that, and don't be afraid to take the risk. It might not always work out, but at least you try. So that's the way that I approach things.
I love that. I love that so much. So is there anything else that you want to leave for our audience, Bea, before we head out?
Well, I thank you for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to share my story. I am a bit of a homebody. I'm usually at home and having it out, just drawing all day. So I do appreciate being welcomed into a community of other artists that are very passionate, and I appreciate learning about your work and what it is that you all like to do. Like I've been seeing the project that you've been working on, Mia, and I still have to catch up on your work, Lawrence. I just added you today.
Yeah, for sure. Please
But
do.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity and to be invited, and just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. It's our pleasure, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
like I said, I've been such a big fan of your work ever since I think Eric actually was the one who told us about your work.
Yes.
And the minute I saw it, I was like an instant fan, and I just really wanted to have you on the show. So this is a dream come true.
Yeah. Your work is like right up my alley. So I was very excited as soon as I saw your work, and I was like, oh yes, I want to see. Oh, last question though. I want to know what the first anime you saw was. What was the first one?
I think it was Sailor Moon.
Yes, I was hoping to give the answer.
I was a really big Sailor. Well, not was. I am a big Sailor Moon fan. Favorite sailor was Jupiter.
Yes.
I love her style, and I love green.
Yes.
And yeah, that was my favorite. I used to make toys. I would take a bottle opener and I painted the handle green. And I was like, oh, bring some power, or whatever the heck I said.
Oh my God.
So that was a huge inspiration for me. I love Sailor Moon.
That makes me really happy. Yeah, I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan and a Magical Girl fan in general. So that, yeah. I was like, when I saw your work, I was like, I can see it. I know where you come from.
Oh yeah, we know each other.
We do. We know each other. We got this is a similar childhood for sure. And that's, yeah, it resonates with your artwork too. I think for me, it definitely inspired me to like make very animated poses and dance like movement in all of my illustrations. And I see that same sense in yours. And so, yeah, I'm just like, I'm clocking it. It's great.
That's cool.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We really value your time and appreciate your time. So thank you so much for giving our audience this this talk about you and sharing your work with us and your journey. It was really inspiring, and I always leave these episodes feeling super inspired. So I hope everybody else who's listening feels the same. If you want to continue to support this podcast, please feel free to do so by smashing that like button, pressing subscribe, or getting that notification lit up so that you can see when we're going live, and to participate in the live chat. And thank you everybody for joining us in the live chat. And please continue to follow us to see more. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Bea. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.